Hello everyone, welcome to Lukmaan IAS. Today we are going to have the Hindu newspaper analysis dated 6th of December 2023. In today's newspaper analysis, we are going to cover some important aspects from the newspaper. Apart from this, we are going to cover a mapping topic that's going to help you to solve mapping related questions in the prelims exam. So let us quickly see the list of important articles that we are going to cover in today's discussion. Okay, so these are the list of articles that we will discuss in today's discussion. So this is the first topic that we are going to discuss today. Okay, name of this topic is places in news. So we are going to understand about Nairobi. So good afternoon, Hari Krishna, thank you so much for joining. So in places in news, we are going to understand about this particular region, which is Nairobi. All right. So Nairobi was recently news related to some of the intergovernmental, let's say commissions. We are going to discuss about it. Good afternoon, ma'am. Thank you so much for joining. So Nairobi is in news. We are going to understand about it. Where is it is located? So Nairobi is the capital of Kenya. Okay, Nairobi is the capital of Kenya, and Kenya is a country in Africa. So Africa is a continent having, let's say, more than 50 countries over here. We are going to see where is Kenya located, with how many countries it shares its border, and also we are going to see that Nairobi, right, has a maritime border. As we can see over here, Nairobi has a maritime border with Indian Ocean. Okay, it has maritime border with Indian Ocean. And if we talk about the name of countries with which it shares its border, so one of the countries, Somalia, we are going, let's say, in anti-clockwise direction, right? One of the country is Somalia. The next country is Ethiopia. The third country is South Sudan. It does have some portion of the border with South Sudan also. The fourth country is Uganda, right? And the fifth country is Tanzania. Okay, so these are the 5 countries with which Nairobi shares its border. Okay, this is important. Apart from this, over here, right, if we see the map of Kenya, Kenya was recently in news. We are going to discuss about Kenya in today's mapping section also, right? So let's discuss about this particular region, which is Kenya. Kenya is a country. So if we see in detail about the Kenya's map, we can locate some important places. For example, we can locate a desert which is known as Chalbi Desert. Okay, this is a Chalbi Desert. Then apart from this, it does have some lakes inside it. One of the lake is known as Lake Turkana. Lake Turkana remains in news. For example, let's say this lake is shared by 2 countries especially. One country is Kenya, other country is Ethiopia. So some portion of the lake is there in Ethiopia also. Okay, so this is the thing, Lake Turkana. Apart from this, Kenya shares borders with Lake Victoria. Okay, it shares borders with Lake Victoria. So where is Lake Victoria located? It is just located to the west of Kenya. Okay, this is Lake Victoria. And why Lake Victoria is important? Because this is the largest lake in Africa. All right, Lake Victoria is the largest lake in Africa. Apart from this, over here we can see some of the hills are located. For example, Taita Hills. Taita Hills is there in this Kenya itself, right? It is in Kenya. Apart from this, there are some small rivers that flow through it. So you can go through these rivers in your free time to understand about the physical portion of Kenya. Okay, Kenya was in news. We are going to discuss why it is in news. It is related to an United Nations environmental program. United Nations environmental program has created a group which is known as Intergovernmental Coordinating Committee, like that, right? Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee. So that Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee has been given a task, and that task is to formulate a treaty, right? And that treaty should be for banning the plastic pollution, right, in the world. It will be for banning the plastic pollution, right? Banning the plastic pollution. So in that regard, we are going to discuss about United Nations Environmental Program. We are going to talk about intergovernmental, let's say, negotiating committee. We are going to talk about the task that it has been given. So that's why, I mean, basically the intergovernmental negotiating committee, it had its third meeting in Nairobi recently. So that's why we are locating Nairobi as places in news. All right. So this is the thing. Now with this, we are going to look into the first topic of the day. Okay, we are going to look into the first topic of the day. Just a minute. So before that, let me open the app where I'm going to write down the things. All right. All right. So this is going to be the first topic that we are going to discuss. Name of this topic, it says Global Stocktake Draft calls for phasing out fossil fuels. So we are going to understand what do we mean by global stocktake, right? We are going to discuss about it. So to understand this particular thing, we need to have an understanding of this topic in its entirety. So this particular topic is important under environment and ecology. It is an important topic under environment and ecology. So name of this topic, as it says, Global Stocktake Draft, right? It is Global Stocktake Draft, right? Global Stocktake Draft calls for phasing out fossil fuels. Calls for phasing out fossil fuels. So as I discussed earlier, that this particular topic is a very important topic under environment and ecology. Why it is important? Because it is connected with a significant agreement, right, which is known as Paris Agreement, right? We have all heard about this term Paris Agreement. This Paris Agreement was signed in the year of 2015, whereas like in 2015 there was a conference of parties, right? Conference of parties was held to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. In short, it is known as UNFCCC. So under the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, every year they conduct a conference of parties. This year also they are conducting a conference of parties which is known as COP28. This is the 28th time the conference of parties is being held under the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, and this is being held in Dubai. Where is it being held? It is being held in Dubai, and Dubai is located in United Arab Emirates. So in this conference of parties 28, basically they are going to come up with a report which is known as Global Stocktake Report, and as of now they have released the draft report of Global Stocktake. So to understand Global Stocktake Report, you need to understand the history associated with it. How the Global Stocktake was conceptualized, what is this report, and what is its significance. We are going to understand about it. To understand the history related to Global Stocktake Report, we need to go back to the Paris Agreement. So Paris Agreement is one of the significant climate agreements that different countries who are parties to the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, they have signed among themselves. So as part of the Paris Agreement, they have taken some goals. And these goals are related to reducing the global warming, right? These goals are related to reducing the global warming. So one of the goals says like we will not allow the global warming to increase beyond 1.5 degrees centigrade as compared to pre-industrial level, right? So we will not allow the global warming to happen, to increase, right? We will not allow the global warming to increase beyond 1.5 degrees centigrade as compared to pre-industrial level. So when we talk about pre-industrial level, in short, we generally refer to this 1850, right? We refer to this particular time period, 1850s. Means from 1850s till now, whatever global warming has happened, we will not let it go beyond 1.5 degrees centigrade. So this was agreed upon by all the member countries of the United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change. So by what time we have taken this target, that by the year of 2100, by the end of this century, We will not let the global warming go beyond 1.5 degrees centigrade as compared to pre-industrial level. And if it is not achieved, right, if it is not achieved, or if it is, let's say, breached, in that case we will not let it happen. Let's say we will not let the global warming go beyond 2 degrees centigrade by the end of this century. So these targets were adopted by the member countries of the UNFCCC, right? These targets were adopted, and as part of these targets, right, how these targets will be implemented by the member countries, for that also the member countries have discussed among themselves that these member countries will come up with something which is known as intended nationally determined contributions, right? It is known as INDCs. So as part of intended nationally determined contributions, all the member countries of the UNFCCC, they beforehand, let's say like in advance, they declare that what will be their climate commitment for this year, means like what they want to achieve, like how many renewable energy, let's say like capacity they are going to build, right? How they are going to harness renewable energy, how they are going to, let's say, utilize solar energy, hydropower energy and all. Why they are doing so? So that we can reduce the global warming. And so intended nationally determined contributions talks about the targets that the member countries takes for themselves. Okay, member countries set targets for themselves that like these are going to be our climate targets, right? But these targets, how much of these targets are met collectively by all the member countries, that will be accounted, that will be checked through this global stocktake report. So here under the Paris Agreement itself, these countries have together taken a pledge. They have decided that after every 5 years, right, every 5 years after the Paris Agreement was signed, they are going to come up with something which is known as global stocktake report. They are going to come up with something which is known as global stocktake report. Okay, and when we talk about this global stocktake report, it is basically going to account, it is going to check how much of the targets that these countries have set for themselves was actually achieved. Are we, let's say, are we on our track of reducing the global warming? Are we on our track to adapt for mitigation changes? And generally global warming happens because of release of some greenhouse gases. What gases? Greenhouse gases. And one of the most potent greenhouse gases, CO2. Okay, CO2. The concentration of carbon dioxide is always increasing in the atmosphere. And since its concentration is increasing, it is leading to global warming because carbon dioxide has the potential to trap, right? To trap heat waves. That's the thing. So greenhouse gases comprise of many gases, for example, carbon dioxide, then chlorofluorocarbons, etc. So there are many such gases that cause global warming. So this is the thing. But Paris Agreement was signed in 2015. They had to come up with global stocktake report in the year 2020. But 2020 was a pandemic year for the entire world. I mean, like, we have faced COVID-19 pandemic. 2020-21 went, in pandemic situation, means like we were trying to recover from it. Then 2020 also went. Now in 2023, basically, like, they have decided to come up with this global stocktake report. So now, since we have understood about the history related to global stocktake report, we need to understand about that, like, this global stocktake report calls for phasing out of fossil fuels. What is the connection of fossil fuel with global stocktake report? We need to understand about this. So basically, fossil fuels are responsible for global warming. Okay, fossil fuels are responsible for global warming because fossil fuels lead to emission. Fossil fuels lead to emission of carbon dioxide, carbon monoxide, and other greenhouse gases that lead to global warming. So that's why this global stocktake report has given a call that we need to reduce, right? We need to phase out fossil fuels and we need to identify alternative sources of energy that are climate friendly, right? That can help us in mitigating the risk of global warming. Why? Because of global warming, what is happening? Glaciers are melting And in today's, let's say like, in today's newspaper itself, right, there is an article that says glaciers shrank 1 meter a year in a decade. Means glaciers means the ice sheets. Let's say this is the world, this is Earth, right? To the North Pole of Earth and to the South Pole of Earth, right? These are polar regions, and like, there are huge amount of ice that are deposited. I mean, like, ice cover is there. This ice slowly, what they do, this ice slowly retreats, okay? It retreats. Retreats means they melt, and their melting leads to melting of the glaciers. And if the ice melt, it will lead to increase in the sea level, right? The sea level is going to rise because these glaciers will add water to the sea. And if sea level increases, it will lead to submergence of island nations. There are many small island developing countries, right? Small island developing nations. So they will be submerged. So the thing is, their existence is under threat, right? So they are facing an existential crisis. Which countries? The coastal countries and island nations. So it is a call, it is an urgent call that we should reduce the global warming. We should take all possible measures so that we can address the problem of global warming. Okay, so this is the thing. So with this, now let us move to another article. Okay, so this particular article had two parts. One part was given in page number 1, other part was given in page number 11. So like whatever is mentioned, I have discussed about it. You can go through the article also to understand little more on this. So with this, we have another article. We are going to discuss about this article. As I talked in the previous article, that glaciers are melting because of global warming. And now the World Meteorological Organization, WMO stands for World Meteorological Organization. The World Meteorological Organization has come up with a report, and according to that report, glaciers shrank 1 meter a year in a decade. Means in the last 10 years, glaciers shrank, means glaciers reduced by 1 meter per year in a decade. Means in the last 10 years, the glaciers have shrank by 10 meters. Okay, it's like that. Okay, glaciers have shrank by 10 meters. So what is which organization has released the report? It is World Meteorological Organization. What is the name of the report? The name of the report is the Global Climate 2011 to 20, a decade of acceleration. Okay, this is the name of the report, right? This is the name of the report. So I'm going to write down the name of the report over here so that like you can remember also. So we are talking about a report, and this report is released by, right? This report is released by World Meteorological Organization. Okay, World Meteorological Organization, right? In short, it is known as WMO, World Meteorological Organization. And what is the name of the report? Right, name of the report is the Global Climate Global Climate 2011 to 20, 2011 to 2020, a decade of acceleration. A decade of acceleration. So this is the name of the report. The Global Climate 2011 to 2020, a decade of acceleration. So what has happened? Basically, the World Meteorological Organization has released this particular report. This particular report said that glaciers are melting. It is not melting at a linear fashion. It is melting. The glaciers melting has accelerated. Accelerated means the speed has let's say like it has consistently increased. Acceleration means like acceleration is speed divided by time, right? So the thing is, this is the thing. So this organization has said this. So according to this organization, it says that the decade from 2011 to 2020 witnessed a rise in economic losses due to extreme weather, but also saw a drop in deaths. The drop in deaths was due to advancements in early warning systems and disaster management. Means because of climate change, although glaciers are retreating, but the thing is number of deaths have been averted, it had been reduced. Why? It is because of the advancements in the early warning systems. And this was also first decade that the depleted ozone hole visibly showed recovery. Okay. So this decade it has also shown that the ozone hole that is there, let's say on our atmosphere, it has also started recovering. Heat waves caused the highest human casualties and tropical cyclones inflicted the most economic damage. Okay. So it talked about heat waves also, it talked about tropical cyclones as well. Then while climate finance nearly doubled, it needs to increase sevenfold by the decade's end. So these are the things. So this article is good. It talks about a report that is released by the World Meteorological Organization. Apart from this, we have another article. This article is related to socio-economic development in our country, right? So this article says the Ambedkar's touch in rethinking social justice politics, right? The Ambedkar's touch in rethinking social justice politics. So through this article, we are going to understand about the issue of social justice in India. We are going to discuss about that how social justice is intricately related to economic justice, political justice as well, right? So name of the article is, this is, let's say, topic number 3, an Ambedkar touch and Ambedkar touch in rethinking social justice policies. Social justice policies. So what is the context of this article? The context is related to the elections that happen in our country, and also it is associated with how the political parties are dealing with, right, the issues of social justice, how they are dealing with uplifting the weaker sections in this society. So in this article, the author suggests a solution. What solution? This solution is related to achieving social justice, right? Achieving social justice. So here the author says that social justice is intricately related to, let's say, economic justice, it is associated with political justice, and social justice is, let's say, in itself, it is linked with these things, and how we can achieve economic justice in our country. So over here the author says that, like, in our country, like in India, there is huge disparity in income, right? There are huge disparity in the level of income between people, right? In the level of income between people. Why there is disparity in the level of income? Because, like, the rich people, rich 1% of the population control about 40% or 50% of the country's resources. Then the bottom 50% control about only 3% of the resources of the country. So author says that there is disparity in the level of income between people, and this has led to a kind of issue between haves and have-nots, haves and have-nots. And those people who are part of have-nots, these are those people who has been historically marginalized. These people have been historically marginalized, and apart from this, these are from depressed classes, right? They are from depressed classes in this society, right? So the Constitution of India gives some leeway to the political parties, right, in the form of Directive Principles of State Policy, right? DPSP. So what does this DPSP say? Directive Principles of State Policy allows the government of India to come up with some kind of let's say program that's going to provide benefit to the marginalized sections of the society, that's going to provide some welfare measures to the people of the society. This is the thing. And apart from this, the author also suggests Ambedkar's views, right? Ambedkar's views. So Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, he has been let's say like he has done pioneering work in uplifting this the let's say marginalized sections of the society and depressed classes from the society. What he has done, he is considered to be the father of the Constitution, in the sense that he was the chairman of the Constitution Drafting Committee. And the Constitution that we have got, right, we have inherited, it is because of the vision that Dr. B.R. Ambedkar has had at that point of time. Because of this, right, so he has shown path to the marginalized section of the society to uplift themselves, and at the same time he has led to inclusion of some important provisions in the Constitution that are going to help these, let's say, marginalized sections to uplift. So the thing is, here they have talked about related to social justice, right? To bring social justice, we need to bring those peoples, right, at par with the other people in the country. And for that, they have talked about abolition of discrimination, right, in matters of public employment, or like, and also Article 15 of the Constitution of India. They say, like, there should not be any discrimination, right, in matters of public employment or in matters of educational institutes solely on the basis or solely on the grounds of let's say sex, religion, caste, place of birth, descent, etc. That's the thing. So author says over here that the leaders of the market economy should be educated to adopt welfareist measures for the worst of social groups, in turn making them integral to the economic development. Okay, so it is important that we need to make the marginalized sections, depressed classes, part of the society, and for that those people who are part of the market economy, who are driving the economy, right, so they should be educated so that these people are uplifted in the society. In present society, what is happening, those people who have historically been the part of haves, those people who have historically been elites, right, the educational elites, I mean people who are highly educated, they are holding the highest post in the government, right? If we talk about business elites, they are the ones who are controlling the resources in the private spheres, right? Who are political elites, dominant people, they are heading the, let's say, topmost political domain in the country. So only the haves have access to the political, economic and educational resources. So the thing is, these people need to be educated, these people need to be told, right, that the marginalized sections are also part of the society and they need to be uplifted, and so they should adopt welfareist measures in their economic thinking, right, in their capacity, so that like these people can be uplifted also. So with this, we have another article. We are going to discuss about this article in detail. This article says, honest rethinking or honest reckoning. Major world economies seem unwilling to move away from fossil fuel, right? So this article is also related to, right? This article is also related to environment and ecology. We are going to quickly discuss about this article. This is topic number 4 for the day. It says, honest reckoning. Right, we are going to discuss about this topic. So, subtopic says, major world economies seem unwilling to move away from fossil fuel. Means it is related to environment and ecology, right? So here we are talking about phasing out of fossil fuel. We are talking about phasing out the use of fossil fuels. Phasing out the use of fossil fuels. Why it is important? Because fossil fuels, right? Why it is needed? Why do we need to phase out fossil fuels? Number one, fossil fuels are responsible for, greenhouse gas emissions, right? They are responsible for greenhouse gas emissions. Fossil fuels are responsible for environmental pollution, okay? They are responsible for environmental pollution. So these are the two major reasons for which, let's say, like, we want to phase out the fossil fuels. However, there was a call also related to phasing out of fossil fuel. Okay, there was a call. I mean, like, there were calls related to phasing out of fossil fuels. So as we discussed in the previous article, the draft global stocktake report, right? The draft global stocktake report. This draft global stocktake report also gives a call to phase out the fossil fuels from the world. We have seen history associated with the global stocktake report. What is this? So this global stocktake report is a kind of report that's going to account how much of the targets that different countries have taken under Paris Agreement was actually achieved. What is the gap between the targets set and the actions that are taken, right? And how far are we away from, means like, like how close are we in, let's say, breaching the Paris Agreement, right? How close we are in breaching the Paris Agreement related to, let's say, global warming. Okay, so this article says that most of the countries that are developed, most of the countries that are, let's say, economically progressive countries, so these countries seem unwilling to move away from fossil fuel. These countries are still willing to use fossil fuels the way that they have been doing earlier. So that's the thing. So recently in this article they say they have talked about intended nationally determined contributions, right? So it talked about India as well. So those countries that already has, right, that already has started using fossil fuels, that have exploited fossil fuels. So those countries, these countries are responsible for global warming as well, but still they are unwilling to phase out fossil fuel because of many reasons, right? Why these countries are unwilling to phase out? Why they are unwilling to phase out, right? Unwilling to phase out fossil fuels. It is because of many reasons. Number one, if they think of phasing out fossil fuel, they have to change the economic structure, and changing economic structure is not easy because the demand for energy is consistently increasing. I mean, like, because the world population is increasing, so with increasing population the demand for energy is also increasing, and energy demand can be met not only by fossil fuels but through alternative sources of energy as well. And fossil fuel has a significant share in providing the energy demand, right, in meeting the energy demand of the globe. And it's not easy to adopt alternative sources of energy. So that's why different countries in the world are not willing to phase out, let's say, they are not willing to phase out the fossil fuel, right? And here they have talked about 1.5 degree, let's say, target that we have set under Paris Agreement. So that I have discussed in the previous article in detail. So with this, let us quickly move to another article. All right, we are going to discuss about another article. It says shared blame, right? This article is related to some, let's say, geophysical phenomena, and we are going to talk about tsunami or cyclone, etc. Okay, so recently a cyclone came. So shared blame. Cyclone Mishong alone was not responsible for Chennai trouble. So recently in Chennai, so where is Chennai located? Chennai is the capital of Tamil Nadu. I would say it is capital of what? Tamil Nadu. Right, so it is there in the state of Tamil Nadu. So Chennai has witnessed a cyclone. It has witnessed a cyclone. What is the name of the cyclone? It is known as Mishong. Okay, M-I-C-H-A-U-N-G. This is the name of the cyclone, Cyclone Mishong, that has affected Chennai. And in this article, the author says that this cyclone is not alone the only, let's say, like, you know, is was not the only responsible for the troubles in Chennai, right? This cyclone is not only responsible. Apart from this, what are other factors that are responsible? Other factors that are responsible for troubles in Chennai. So here the author has talked about those factors also. I'm going to talk about those factors one by one. So it says that cities' ability to respond to such storms can be compromised by decades of unplanned construction. Number one, there is a history of unplanned construction. Okay, there is a history of unplanned construction in the city. This is another factor. Apart from this, here the author talked about defiance of zoning. Okay, defiance of zoning. Okay, defiance of zoning. Defiance of zoning means there are city planners, right? City planners, and we have municipal corporations. So, like, you know, they declare different zones. These are the zones where this kind of construction can be done. These are the zones where construction cannot be done and all. So there are rules, like, you know, that define different zonation. They talk about different zones, green corridors, where some kind of like construction activity should not be done. But what people have done, they have defied it. They did not abide by the zoning rules. Okay, so that is another problem. Apart from this, the author has talked about that some forms of public indiscipline, right? And indiscipline, especially littering, means like public indiscipline is also there. So there are many factors that can be attributed as responsible for the damages, for the, let's say, problems that Chennai has faced. And cyclone is something, let's say, it is a natural hazard, right? It's a natural hazard, or I would say it is a natural disaster. But this natural disaster is aggravated by the man, activities that are done by man. These are known as anthropogenic activities. What human beings are doing? We are increasing the global warming. We are increasing the pollution level. And because of global warming, many climate related phenomena have altered. Okay, it has altered. So most of the climate phenomena that has altered, it has led to destruction of cities, right, across the world. It's not the only city, Chennai is not the only city that was affected by any cyclone. This year itself we have come across names of many places. For example, many countries that share borders with Mediterranean Sea. There also a lot of cyclones came, right, hurricanes came, that has affected their infrastructure, that has killed their population, and it can be attributed to global warming. It can be attributed to anthropogenic activities that affect the global balance. All right. So with this, we are quickly going to move to another article. So this article is an important topic. It says, is unmarried women having children by surrogacy an accepted norm in India? So basically, the government of India has come up with surrogacy rules in 2021, right? In 2021, the government of India has come up with Surrogacy Regulation Amendment Act. Okay, it has come up with Surrogacy Regulation Amendment Act. And this Surrogacy Regulation Amendment Act of 2021, it talks about who can be surrogate mother, who can be surrogate mother. So it lays down some eligibility conditions for a person, for a female to become a surrogate mother. What are the eligible conditions? First of all, this surrogacy should be done for altruistic purposes. Okay, it should be done for altruistic purposes. Altruistic purposes means for, let's say, beneficial purposes for their close relative. It should not be done for economic benefit, right? It should be done with a welfareist mindset. Apart from this, the surrogate mother should be a close relative of the intended couple. Okay, so there will be a couple, let's say, like, who want to have a biological child, but because of some defect in the female, right, because of some defect in the female to bear a child, so the thing is like they go for a surrogate mother. Okay, they go for a surrogate mother. But here this Surrogacy Regulation Amendment Act, it lays down certain conditions. Okay, what conditions? That this surrogate mother should be a close relative. Apart from this, this particular act says only a couple should go for surrogacy, or there can be a divorcee woman, she can have a surrogate child. There can be a woman, let's say, like, who is widowed, she can have a surrogate child. And these things were challenged in the Supreme Court of India. And the Supreme Court of India was hearing this particular matter, and in one of the case, one of the High Court has allowed a single mother, right, it has allowed a single woman to, let's say, have a child through surrogacy. So she has challenged some portion of this particular act, Surrogacy Regulation Amendment Act, right, in a High Court, and the High Court has given judgment in her favor. She said, means like, it had a provision that only a married couple can have child, or like that. Means like, there was a thing that said that the women should have her own gamete. It should not be, let's say, like, from a third party, from a third person. So that was challenged. However, the High Court has allowed this thing, and Supreme Court was hearing this thing, and Supreme Court has made a remark. It's not a judgment, final judgment. It's, let's say, during hearing, during the course of hearing, the judges hear what the lawyers or petitioners have to say, and they, let's say, like, they ask further questions. So that's where the Supreme Court of India has asked that is unmarried women having child by surrogacy an accepted norm in India? And the council responded by saying that it is a single woman bearing a child is an exception. It is an exception. It's not a norm and not a rule in Indian society, because our society says to have children within marriage. Okay, so our society accepts a child who is born outside a marriage, right? So it's not a norm, it's an exception. A single woman bearing a child is outside marriage, that is not accepted norm in our society. So, like, this kind of discussion was going on. Okay, surrogacy is something where a third woman means like one male, one female. This is the intended couple who want to have a baby, but because of some defect in the women, she cannot bear a child, and that's why they, let's say, have a surrogate mother, and this surrogate mother bears a child for this particular parent. Okay, she bears a child for this parent. After the child takes birth, she hands over the child to the parent, and then, she does not claim her right on the child. So this is what is surrogacy. India has adopted altruistic surrogacy. We have banned commercial surrogacy in India. So there was debate in 2021 long back related to this, right? So this is the thing. This is an ongoing activity. Let's say lot can be discussed under surrogacy. So with this, let us move to another article. So Prabhat Singh, thank you so much for joining. So now let us discuss about this topic. It says the journey towards a plastic-free world. This article is related to environment and ecology. And so in this article, we are going to discuss about many important things. Okay, we are going to discuss about many important things. Lot of development has happened in this regard. So we are going to discuss about all those developments, and there are some important facts also for the prelims exam as part of this discussion. All right. So let us quickly move to that this topic. Name of this topic is A Journey Towards a Plastic-Free World. a journey towards a plastic free world. So to understand this topic, we need to understand that we have something which is known as United Nations Environment Program. All right, United Nations Environment Program is a kind of initiative of the United Nations organization. This particular body has the responsibility of coming up with some kind of measures that's going to help the environment, right, to mitigate some of the risks that our environment faces, be it in the form of climate change, be it in the form of, let's say, environmental pollutions, be it in the form of any kind of, let's say, pollution that is associated with the environment. So this United Nations Environment Program has created a let's say, committee. It is known as intergovernmental, right? Intergovernmental negotiating, okay? Intergovernmental negotiating committee. INC, Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee. What was the target for this committee? This committee has been given the target, it has been given a target, right, to come up with a treaty, right, to come up with a treaty to ban plastic pollution, right, to ban plastic pollution. And this target was set up, that this target has to be achieved by the year of 2025 by this body, okay? So this body should achieve this target by the year of 2025. And this Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee, what it has done, it has already conducted, INC, it has conducted one discussion. Then International Negotiating Committee has conducted the second phase of discussion, and now recently it has, let's say, like, it has concluded, International Negotiating Committee has concluded third discussion, and this third discussion has happened in Nairobi, right? It has happened in Nairobi, which is the capital of Kenya. It has happened in Nairobi, Kenya. So that's why today, in the beginning of today's discussion, we discussed about where is Nairobi located. Nairobi is the capital of Kenya. We have seen the map of Kenya, that Kenya has its border with, let's say, like one of the largest lake in Africa, which is Lake Victoria. It shares its maritime border with Indian Ocean also. And then we have talked about those countries that border Kenya. Okay, we have discussed that thing as mapping topic. So this Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee was given the responsibility of coming up with a treaty that can ban the plastic pollution. And this treaty, there was a deadline also of 2025. So this Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee is interacting with different countries to bring those countries on board, right? So that they can agree to phasing out of plastic pollution. And as part of this, many countries have agreed also, but some countries have raised concerns. There are certain types of plastics for which countries are not agreeing upon. And in this article, they have discussed about those, let's say, like, those plastics also. So as of now, this Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee 3, they have come up with a draft which is known as zero draft. Okay, it has come up with a draft which is known as zero draft. Zero draft means the first draft of this particular treaty, which is treaty to ban plastic pollution. And here what has happened, the zero draft as prepared by the Secretariat contained strong options for international legally binding treaty to end plastic pollution. But during negotiations, member states managed to water down their core obligations, particularly those pertaining to some high impact elements such as primary polymer production, chemical of concern, problematic and short-lived plastics, trade and financial mechanism, among others. So these are the things that are discussed in this article. In this article, they have discussed about United Nations Environment Assembly Resolution 5/14, United Nations, right? There is United Nations Environmental Assembly resolution, okay? So it has adopted a resolution. Number of this resolution is 5/14. And what is the core thing related to this resolution. So this resolution, under this resolution, the INC is responsible for delivering a global plastics treaty by 2025. So United Nations Environmental Assembly resolution has set this target for the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee to discuss about this thing. Why it is important to ban plastic pollution? Because plastic pollution is affecting the environment largely. It is affecting the, let's say, marine life. You might have seen many whales are found in dead condition, and from their stomach, what has come? Huge amount of plastics has come out of their, let's say, their stomach. It showcases that there is wide prevalence of, let's say, waste plastic in the ocean also. So some of the countries, for example, some African group countries and small island developing states played an important role. Their submission stood out from the rest as they championed the voices of waste picker and indigenous peoples and approached the treaty from a human rights and public health perspective. Means small states, small island developing nations have raised the voice of the rag pickers. They have raised the voice of the indigenous communities, and they have talked about their role in reducing the plastic pollution. All right. So this is the thing. So this is a good article. All right. So this is a good article. So with this, let us now move to another topic. This topic is related to science and technology. It is related to science and technology. We are going to discuss about this topic in detail. Why this topic is important? Because through this topic we are going to understand about global positioning system. What? We are going to discuss about global positioning system. We are going to understand how global positioning system actually works, right? To understand this particular thing, let us quickly let us quickly write down the name of the topic. Topic is understanding how global positioning system works, right? We need to understand how the GPS works. Now to understand this particular thing, we need to understand what is GPS, what is global positioning system, right? We need to understand this. So basically global positioning system is something that helps us, right? What it does, it helps us in locating, right? In locating various places on earth, right? Various places on earth. So using GPS, sitting over here, sitting at your home, you can see where is USA located, where is this country located. Not only country, you can see let's say minute places in those countries also, and there are various applications related to it, right? There are various applications of GPS. What are the applications? For example, we use GPS system for navigation purposes. For example, if you're moving from one place to another place on road, you generally apply the Google map, right? And that Google map helps you to locate the places. For navigation, we use it. And this GPS system is also being used by the military, right? It is being used by the military. So for their own purposes to locate the targets and other thing. It is used for managing the air traffic also. It is being used for managing the air traffic or air navigation. It is used for multiple purposes, right? So we know its usage. Most of us have used it. But to understand how GPS works, we need to understand this thing, that let's say this is our earth. This is our earth, right? What is this? This is our earth. So the GPS actually gives you the real-time data, real-time geospatial data, real-time position data of different locations, let's say like in the earth. So what happens as part of GPS, what we have done, we have stationed, let's say like satellites. What we have done, we have stationed, right? We have stationed satellites on different orbits. And how many satellites are needed for a GPS system to work? Generally we need 24 satellites. We need 24 satellites, and these 24 satellites covers the entire Earth, and these satellites are placed on different orbits, right? Like different orbits on the top of our Earth. So these orbits are located at about 20,200 kilometers above the surface of the Earth. And in how many orbits these let's say satellites are placed? These satellites are placed in 6 orbits. They are placed in 6 orbits, and in each orbit there are 4 satellites, right? In each orbit there are 4 satellites. So 6 into 4, totally we have 24 satellites, and these 24 satellites actually cover the entire Earth. And so there are 3 things that are associated with it. Number 1 is the satellites that are just located on this orbit. This is the 20,200 kilometer orbit, means above the surface of Earth, right, at a distance of 20,200 kilometer, we have satellites placed, right? We have satellites placed, and these satellites are placed in 6 different orbits. This can be one orbit, that can be another orbit, like that. So like we have placed these satellites in different orbits, and these orbits, these satellites keep on revolving in these orbits, and they provide accurate positioning data to us, right? What they do, they provide accurate positioning data. Just a minute. So I'm going to use eraser also. So we have 24 satellites. I'm going to make you understand about this concept, right? Let's say this is the Earth. What we have done, we have placed satellites in different orbits. One orbit can be this, other orbit can be that, other orbit can be this, there can be like that, different types of orbits. So there are 6 orbits on which these satellites are placed. And satellites, what they do, they receive information from ground-based stations, and they share those information with other ground-based stations. So one part of, let's say there are 3 components related to this. There are 3 components related to this. What are 3 components? Number 1 is the satellites, right? 24 satellites that we have. That is one component. Other is ground-based, right? Other is ground-based stations. Ground-based stations. What is the role of these stations? One thing is they send data, they receive data, and also they manage the orbits of these satellites from time to time, right? They help these satellites to stay on their orbit by maneuvering their path. Apart from this, the third thing is the user devices. User devices means we have smartphones, we have mobiles. Using those smartphones, using our devices, we receive the data, we receive the geospatial data, right, from here. So this is GPS system. This GPS system has been developed by the United States of America, USA. Basically it was developed by for the purpose of US Army, for the purpose of their military. However, India has also developed, right? India has also developed its own GPS system. Earlier it was known as Indian Regional Navigation Satellite System, IRNSS, but later on it was renamed as NAVIC. NAVIC stands for Navigation with Indian Constellations, okay? It means navigation with Indian constellation, right? Navigation with Indian constellation. So as part of NAVIC, right, as part of NAVIC, what we have, let's say this is Earth. Just above India, what we have done, we have placed these satellites into different orbits. 3 of the satellites are placed in geostationary orbit, other 3 and 4 are placed in geosynchronous orbit, like that. So this Navik system has 7 satellites, right? This Navik system has 7 satellites. What it does, it covers India and nearby region up to 1500 kilometer, right? To the length and breadth of the country, means like 1500 kilometer to the north, to the south, to the west, east and all, including India. So India along with 1500 kilometer that way. So we have navigation with Indian constellation also. So this is the thing. This is how it works, right? This is how it works. So over here in this article they have mentioned about many other things also. In detail they have mentioned, but for our purposes we need to understand how it works. Sir, who will control these orbits? See, the orbits are not controlled by any single country, right? So Hari Krishna has asked a question that who control these orbits, right? Who control these orbits? Basically orbits are not part of jurisdiction of any country, right? So orbits are simply the space, right? It is simply the space above the surface of the earth. So above the surface of earth, let's say you place a satellite over here in this orbit at about 20,200 kilometers that USA has done. So in one orbit they have placed how many satellites? They have placed 4 satellites. Let's say like this is satellite 1, satellite 2, satellite 3, satellite 4, and they have created 6 such orbits. Means like they are at similar distance, but like they do have a different orientation. So these orbits are not attributed to a single country. So there is an agreement also. This is known as let's say like Outer Space Treaty. Outer Space Treaty. So this Outer Space Treaty of 1967, I think, right? So this Outer Space Treaty actually lays down the framework that the orbits around the earth should be used for peaceful purposes by different countries, right? And whenever a country is sending any satellite to the outer space, right, if they are sending any satellite to the orbit of the earth, in that case they will declare its purpose, why they are sending, and they will make it known to the scientific community in the world. It is, let's say, this Outer Space Treaty was signed under the United Nations organization, under the UN system, and it has made it mandatory for all those countries who are sending some satellites into the orbit to declare about its purpose and to talk about like where it will be located. And other countries, when they are sending some satellite, they will make it sure that their satellite are not colliding, or they are not colliding with the existing satellites over there. Okay, they are not colliding and they are not harming the existing satellites. Because if, let's say, in the world there are 193 countries that are member of the United Nations organization, as of now 194 countries actually. So these countries, many of these countries are spacefaring nations. Like we have United States of America, we have Europe, European Union, we have Canada, we have India, we have Japan, we have Russia. We have many other countries that are spacefaring nations. So they are sending their own satellite, and under this Outer Space Treaty, they have also put obligations on different countries that if your national space agency, for example, in case of USA, it is there it is known as NASA. In case of USA, it is known as NASA, National Aeronautics and Space Administration. In case of India, it is Indian Space Research Organization, ISRO, right? So their space agencies, let's say like if they are sending some satellite, they will make it sure that that satellite do not harm satellite of other countries, and at the same time the launch of those satellites should not be, let's say like should be so secure that it should not harm other population in the country. Means it should not fall back on any countries. If it falls back, then it will be, there will be liability of the launching state, whether it is a state agency or by a private individual or private organization in that country, right? So the liability will be of that state itself. So that's the thing, okay? So the Outer Space Treaty talks about the liabilities as well. So the orbits are not controlled by anyone. Orbit is just free space. Anything which is there, let's say like above a certain distance, so it, like if it is given some thrust, so it will keep on rotating like that. So for this, Kepler has given laws, right? We understand about Kepler's laws of planetary motion. So if you learn about it, you will understand. So he has given 3 laws related to this, that how the planets move, and similar to the planets, these satellites also move. Okay, artificial satellites, the satellites that we are sending, it is man-made or artificial satellites. But like if you talk about moon, it is a natural satellite. That's the thing. Okay, so he has given 3 laws. I have discussed about Kepler's laws also in one of the previous editorial discussion classes. That's the thing. You can go through that. All right. So is it understood, Hare Krishna? So this is the mapping topic actually. So here I have showcased how these countries are located. So these are the locations of these, satellites, 24 satellites. They form part of the global positioning system, GPS. And this is just a showcase, like, that how these satellites are revolving. So these satellites are in different orbits. We can see they can be at same distance, but they are in different orbits. They are going in different paths. Then we have another article. It says UK tightens immigration rules to curb record high migrant numbers. So United Kingdom, what it has done, it has, let's say, strengthened its policy related to immigration. So those people who want to go inside UK, they have to pass through some immigration laws. They have set up some process, and what they have done, they have recently tightened their rules. Means like they will not allow a person without proper legal document to enter into UK. So this is what they have said, and this is done by the UK government. Why? They wanted to protect their own country from the influx of the migrants, right? From influx of the immigrant people, illegal, to stop the influx of illegal immigration in their country. That's the thing. So that's all for the day from my side. Thank you so much everyone for attending today's session. I hope you have a good day ahead. Thank you.